Hi everyone, welcome to Money Page where we decode the mindset of money. Today we are going to be looking at a very important topic titled how someone with a meager salary can save from that salary. You must have heard of so many savings formula which probably you must have applied some of them but they are not working the way they should. Though this can be so frustrating, but tonight we are making a video to address that issue so that you can begin your savings journey. Normally, there is nothing wrong with all this savings formula that you must have heard, but there is something that is missing that is making them not to work the way they should. There is a pre-action that need to be carried out before applying those formula. If that pre-action is not carried out, those formula may not work properly. That is why we are making this video tonight to correct that aspect, that you need to apply this pre-action first before you can apply those formula. What is this pre-action we are talking about, or what is the action we need to carry out before we can apply those formula? But before we look at this particular action we need to carry out first before applying on this formula, let's look at some of those formula and the challenges they face. Number one of the savings formula we should be looking at is that savings formula that says pay yourself first before you start spending. Pay yourself from the salary you receive first before you start spending. That is a very good advice. It is motivating. That formula is trying to motivate you to cultivate the habit of saving. But the challenge with that formula is that it's not telling us how to determine the amount we have to save. It's only telling us that we should save first from our salary before we start spending. But he is not telling us how much we have to save first or how much we have to pay ourselves first before we start spending. That is the challenges with that formula. At least we should know how to determine that amount we have to pay ourselves first before we start spending the rest. But if we are unable to determine this amount, we cannot accurately pay ourselves. That is the challenge with that formula. The second formula that is also popular is every income you earn, ensure you save 10% out of it. In every income you earn, ensure that you save 10% out of it before you spend. That one also come with its own challenge, which is the 10% may be too high for someone that is receiving a meager salary, or it may be too low. If it is too high for someone receiving a meager salary, it becomes difficult for the person to meet up with the basic needs throughout that month. And if it is too low, the person is going to have excess. And if he's having excess, there is a loophole there for the person to spend the excess after saving 10%. Third one is 50-30-20 formula, which simply mean you should divide your salary into three parts. 50% should go for your basic need, 30% go for your want, and 20% go for your savings. The main challenge this has is that how do we know that 50% will cover our expenses? How do we know that 50% will cover our basic needs for that particular month? Take for instance, somebody that is earning £2,000 monthly, and 50% of £2,000 is £1,000, and this person has to pay for rent, he has to pay for electricity bill, he has to pay for feeding, he has to transport. When you put all this money together, you'll be surprised that that four basic needs is already more than £1,000. Say for instance, if he's paying for accommodation with B £700, is left with £300. If you pay for feeding, let's say 250, is left with £50. £50 will not be enough for over transportation, and there are so many other basic needs the person have to meet in that month. That is why that particular formula is not working, especially for people that are receiving a meager salary. Now, what is that one thing that you must do first? What is that reaction that you need to carry out first before applying those formula? What you need to do first is simply you need to carry out your personal cash flow. You need to carry out your personal cash flow before you apply those formulas. If you don't carry out this personal cash flow, the purpose of those formula will be defeated. Then what is cash flow? Let me define cash flow in a very simple way that everyone that is watching this video will understand what cash flow actually means, irrespective of their educational background. Cash flow simply means the coming in of your income and the going out of your income. In other words, cash flow means the recording of all your income that is coming in and the recording of how you are spending that income, or how the income is going out. That is what cash flow simply means. By the time we go into the practical, you are going to see the full picture. It is very simple. It is not a difficult thing. Let's go into the practical. As you can see from the screen, this is the template we are going to be using for our cash flow. But this cash flow, we are going to call it personal cash flow because it is applied to individual, to you only. As you can see from the screen, we have the left hand side, we have the right hand side. On the left hand side, you can see from the top income items amount. On the left hand side, we have expense items amount. On this your left hand side where you have income items, this is where you record all the income you are receiving. You record it at this side. Then the expense side, that is where you record all that is collecting that your income, the way you are spending it, you record it on this other side. From this other side, the income is going out and the income came in through this side and the income is going out through that way via your expenses. That is why we said cash flow is the recording of how your income are coming in and the recording of how your income are going out. That is a very simple definition. With that, you can be able to determine the balance of your income that will now go for your savings. If this side is higher than this side after spending, you are going to have a balance which will now become your savings amount. But if this side is higher than this side, meaning you are not going to have anything, you are going to be having negative, meaning you even need more income to be able to cover up your expenses. The item we are going to have in this expense side is what you need, not what you want. Some of us, we don't know the difference between what we want and what we need. That is why sometimes every month we are unable to save because we spend all the money we have in both what we need and what we want. What we need is those things that are compulsory for us to live our daily life. By the time we start imputing figures, we are going to see everything clearly. On our income side, we want to start to impute figure. We want to impute figure. Since we are looking at a small amount of salary, in our net salary, we will impute 1,800 pounds. 1,800 pounds. Now, we are using pounds as a currency in this illustration. That doesn't mean you can't use any other currency. Probably depends on the country you are living in. If you are living in America, dollar. Canada is also dollar. Maybe you live in any Europe country, they use a euro. Then those currency can as well fit in. If you are receiving other income, assuming you have side hustle, you can as well include what you are receiving from that side hustle. It is part of your income. Now let's impute 200 there. That will give us 2,000. Our total income now is 2,000 pounds, and our net income is also 2,000 pounds. The reason for that, we have not started spending. Our income have not started going out. The income just came in. For that reason, our income is still 100% intact. We have not started spending. Now, you come to this other side and list out all your basic needs. You list them out and begin to allocate the amount that you are spending on them on monthly basis. The number one we have here is rent. You will agree with me that rent is a compulsory need. You need a place to sleep, you need a place to rest, you need a place to eat, you need a place to be away from bad weather. You need rent. Rent is a compulsory need. Now let's allocate an amount for our rent. Let's allocate 550 pounds. On monthly basis, the rent we are paying is 550 pounds. We are assuming that you are living alone. You are paying 550 pounds in a room apartment. Then feeding. Feeding is also compulsory. I don't need to tell you that feeding is compulsory. Let's allocate 250 pounds to our feeding. The next is transportation. Transportation is also a basic need. You need to move from one place to the other. You need to move from your home to work where you are generating this income. You need to transport. Transportation is very key. Now let's allocate 100 pounds for our transportation. Now we have credit card. Assuming that we purchase something valuable on credit, we need to pay back on monthly basis. Then you need to allocate the amount you are to be paying back on monthly basis. Let's allocate 120 for our credit card. As I said earlier, assuming you purchase something valuable, at least you need to pay back. Let's allocate £150 for our utility. Then our children care, we also need to allocate an amount for us to be taking care of our children. Let's allocate £150 for our children too. Then data is also one of the basic things we need these days. As you are watching this video right now, it is data you are using to watch this video. Then we need to allocate amount to it. Apart from you using it to watch video, you use it to track your buses, you use it for to navigate to your destination. Data is also very key, is part of our daily needs these days. Let's allocate £20 to our data. Let's allocate an amount to our black tax. Black tax simply means the amount of money you send to your family to support them. Maybe you send money to your parents, you send money to your siblings, your friends. That is terms black tax. You send those money to them to support them. Let's allocate £100 to black tax. As you can see, we have already spent 72%. We have already spent 72%. Now, let's allocate amount to few wants. Let's assume there are some few wants we need to be spending on monthly basis. Let's allocate amount to it. Let's just give our one £25. Then our miscellaneous we will also our miscellaneous, that is the last on our list. We should also assign money to miscellaneous. Now you can see, as you can see from the screen, our total expense is £1,495. We have spent £1,495, which is 75% of our income. We have spent 75% of our income on our basic needs. Then we are left with £505. We are left with £505 to be our savings amount. Now let's go back to the three savings formula that we explained earlier and see how we can apply them now that we have been able to determine our savings amount. For the first formula, which says pay yourself first from your salary before you start spending. Pay yourself first from your salary before you start spending. Then that formula can now work now because you have already determined your savings amount. Now you can decide on monthly basis to be paying yourself first £505 on monthly basis. On monthly basis, you can decide to be paying yourself first this amount that we have determined, £505. You see, that savings formula is actually working, but the challenge with that is if you don't carry out this exercise, you will not be able to determine this amount that you are going to be paying yourself on monthly basis. Now that you are be able to carry out your personal cash flow, then you can decide to be paying yourself first every month the sum of £505. Now let's look at the second formula. Let's see how it can be applied here. The second formula say in every income you earn, pay yourself first 10% before you start spending. That formula says in every income you earn, pay yourself first 10% of it before you start spending. Let's see how we can apply it here. Now we earn £2,000. £2,000. If we pay 10% of £2,000, that is going to be £200. We would have paid ourselves £200, or we would have saved £200 before we start spending. That formula actually work here, but the only challenge with that is that it's creating a loophole for excess to be spent. As you can see, if we apply that 10%, we would have been able to, if we apply that 10%, we would have been able to save £200. But because we carry out our cash flow, we now discover that we have the capacity to save more than 10%. We can actually save 25%. Not that that formula is not working, but the formula is trying to ensure that we must save. We must save. But because we were able to carry out our cash flow, we discover that we can actually save 25%. Now the last formula which says 50, 30, 20%, that we should divide our salary into three parts. 50% go for our basic needs, and 30% for our wants, and 20% will go for savings. That formula says we are going to spend 50% for our needs. As you can see, we have already spent 75% of our income on our needs. That shows that that aspect of it does not work here. But the savings part of it, which is 20%, actually work here to some extent, because we do not list out our want, because we are in the struggle of surviving with a meager salary. In a nutshell, for me, that formula is not for people that are receiving a little amount of salary. It is for people whose salaries are robust. Someone that maybe is receiving like £7,000. 50% of £7,000 is £3,500. Someone that is spending £3,500 for his or her need is a big person, is not someone receiving a small amount of salary. That is why I said, for me, that savings formula is for people that are receiving a robust salary. That is that for those three formula. As you can see, for you to be able to apply those formula, you need to carry out your personal cash flow first, so that you can be able to determine the amount you are going to be saving every month. As I said earlier, that this video is going to be of practical. This amount that we are determining that is not the only thing that your cash flow can do for you. The cash flow can do more than this for you. The cash flow can open your eye to scrutinize every item you have on your expense side. It can open your eye to begin to scrutinize them. You review every of the item, then you will see maybe you can reduce any of this amount so that your balance income will goes up. Is another thing your personal cash flow can do for you. If you can sit down to scrutinize every item on this expense side, you will be shocked that there are some that you are overspending on. What we are going to do now, we are going to analyze all these expense and see if we can reduce any of them so that we can increase our net income balance. How do you carry out analysis on your expense or on those data you are seeing on the board? The simplest way to carry out analysis on data or to review those data is for you to ask relevant question surrounding those data. You ask relevant question, look at alternative around there, then you choose the best option that is favorable to you. Now let's start with rent. Let's start with rent. You begin to ask question surrounding that rent. This rent I'm paying, is it too expensive for me? Is it too high for me? If you feel it is too high for you, how will I be able to reduce it? Then you ask further question. Now I'm staying in this environment and the rent in this environment is very high. It is £550. Is there any other area that the rent is lower compared to where I'm currently living? You ask yourself those questions. As you are asking yourself, you will be seeing answers to them. Now take for instance, you ask yourself this question: this area I'm living, why is it expensive? You know that there are so many area in every or in a community. You have different area. You have the industrial area, you have the commercial area, you have the residential area, you have the city area, you have the outskirt of the city area. Then those areas have different value, they have different cost of living. Then you look at it and begin to review them. This area I'm staying, is it too expensive for me? If it is too expensive for you, you need to move to area that is less expensive. Now let's use, assuming you are living in a city and you are paying £550, and outskirt of that city you can get a rent for £400 or £450. If you can get a rent in another place for £400 or £450, that will lead you to another question. Let's use this scenario that you are working in a city but you want to get a cheaper rent in outskirt of the city where you can get a rent for 450. What do? You need to check if you can be coming from that outskirt of the city to the city where you are working. If it is possible, then you need to move to outskirt of the city. You'll be able to save £450. Then you can still look at it this other way. You are working outside the city and they are paying 450 or £400 outside the city for a home, and you are living in the city, you are paying 550. What stop you for staying where you are working? Why not move to that outskirt of the city and rent a house there, since your workplace is in that place. Whenever you want to come to the city, maybe during weekend, you can as well come to the city to feel the vibe of the city. Those are some of the way you do your analysis by asking question, you get. From there you will know what to do. Now let's assume we have asked all these questions, we are satisfied of moving to outskirt of the city to get a home. If we do that, we will be able to reduce this our rent. Now let's take our rent to 450. Let's assume we rent the one of 450. Den our balance income have moved to £605. Our balance income have moved to £605. This is one of the thing that cash flow can do for you. It will open your eye to all the expense that is making your money to go out from you. You open your eye to scrutinize them, review them, and then you begin to reduce them if it is possible for you to reduce. Let's go to feeding. What are the questions you need to ask yourself around the feeding to know whether you are spending more on feeding or not? The question you should ask yourself: how often do I cook at home? Do I eat more outside than that I cook at home? If yes, what are you going to do about it? Are you going to continue buy food outside than you cook at home? If you want to stop buying food outside, then you ask yourself question: how much am I buying this food outside? Let's use example so that it can be clearer. For instance, you are buying food from a vendor every day to eat, and that food costs you £15. Do you think that is the cost to the vendor, the food vendor? No, that will not be the cost, because the food vendor must add his or her profit to that amount that is selling it to you. Take for instance, the vendor is incurring a cost of £10 to prepare that food, and is selling it to you for £15. Is making £5 as a profit from you. If you too cook that food, you will also spend a cost of £10, thereby saving yourself £5. Let's assume now that once in a week you eat outside and you spend £15. Den the 4 weeks we have in a month, you eat 4 times outside, meaning you will spend extra £20 if you have eaten outside. But if you cook that food at home, it will only cost you £40 for that 4 days that you ate outside. But if you cook it at home, you will be able to save £20. Now another question you will ask yourself is: how often do you cook? Is it whenever you want to eat, that is when you cook? In other words, 7 days in a week you are cooking. When you want to eat, you go and cook what you will eat that day. The following day you cook what you will eat. But if you are cooking like twice in a week, you cook it and the food you cook is many, then you store them in the fridge. Then you can be taking from there to microwave and eat. That will also help you to save. The cost of cooking. What is the cost of cooking there? Let me explain with this popular saying that it will take the same number of minutes you use in cooking one egg to cook 5 egg. Now let's explain it this way. If egg is the food you eat every day, just for instance, and you cook that one egg with a cost of £2 using your gas, it cost you £2. Den if you cook the 5 egg the same day and keep dem in the fridge and be taking one every day, meaning you are going to spend just £2 to cook that 5 egg. But if you are cooking the egg every day, whenever you want to eat the egg, you go and take it and cook it. That means that 5 egg you are going to use £10 to cook it. You see, that will be increasing your energy, will be increasing your energy. That is how frequent you cook will also contribute to the cost of your utility bill. Let's go to our transportation. You ask yourself this question: what are the means of transportation in this my environment? Is it buses? Is it train? Is it trans? Is it cab? If it is cab, meaning you are going to be paying more. If it is bus, you are going to be paying less. Then you look at it and compare those means of transportation. Which one are you going to choose? Definitely you will choose bus. If you choose bus to be using bus, you also ask the question: how do I pay for this bus? Because there are very way you pay for your transportation. If you decide to be paying daily whenever you are going to work and returning back, you are going to be spending nothing less than £5 every day. Now if you go to work 5 days in a week, that means you are going to spend £25. If in a month you are going to spend £100, because we have 4 weeks in a month. Since you are spending £25 in a week, in 4 weeks you are going to spend £100. But if you subscribe to a bulk pass, it is not going to be more than £85. If you are paying with your ATM card on daily basis, you are going to spend £100. But if you subscribe to a card, you are going to be paying £85. You will be able to save £15. Let's go further. If you also subscribe to a bus pass, there are two ways you do the subscription to a bus card. The two ways are: you can take the card to a vendor and subscribe, or you allow the bus company to debit you directly in your bank account. In other words, you set up a direct debit with the bus company. Now the two look similar, just to subscribe that bus pass, but the amount is different. Now let me assume that the amount are the same, but subscribing to a direct debit is still cheaper than taking your car to a vendor for subscription. I said I'm assuming that the same amount you will use in the subscription. Let's say it is £85 per each. If you take it to a vendor, you spend £85. If you allow the company to be debiting you directly, then you also pay £85. Now, how is it cheaper when you are paying the same amount? Let me tell you how I come to conclusion that it is cheaper. When you take your car to a vendor to subscribe, they charge you for 28 days, because they count 7 days in a week and multiply it by 4 to make it 28 days every month. Whenever you take your car to a vendor, that is what you get. If you recharge it on the first of whichever month, it will end on the 28th of that month. It will not exceed 28th of that month. The reason is they count 7 days a week and multiply it by the number of weeks in a month. You and I know that you have 7 days in a week and you have 4 weeks in a month. When they multiply it, you give them 28 days. You pay for 28 days. But if you allow a direct debit to your account to pay for your subscription, you are paying for 30 days for the month that end in 30 days. If that month end in 31 days, you are paying for 31 days. Take for instance the month that end in 31 days, if you pay on the first, before they will debit you again, it's going to be on the first of the next month. It's going to be on the first of the next month. But if you take it to a vendor, you will pay for 28 days. Now you can see that it is cheaper for you to allow for a direct debit. If you take it to a vendor, the remaining 2 days in a month that end in 30 days, you have to pay £10 to cover up that 2 days. If that month end in 31 days, meaning you have extra 3 days that you have to pay for. If it is £5 a day, meaning you are paying £15. You see that direct debit is cheaper than you taking it to a vendor. These are way you analyze your expenses so that you know the one that you have to reduce. Now that we have been able to analyze this, let's take the cost of our transport to £85. Now our savings have moved to £620. It has moved to £620 because we were able to reduce our expense in rent and transportation. That take our saving to £620. Initially, we were having £505, but now it is £620. We have been able to save £150. We have been able to reduce this side. Now for credit, once we finish paying this 120, or we finish paying for the item we purchase, this our 120 is going to leave there. But for the purpose of this class, for what we are doing to be more realistic, let's leave our 120 there, that we are still paying. We still have some number of months to pay for what we purchase. Let's leave our 120 there. Then we come to our utility bill. As I explained earlier, that if you are cooking frequently, instead of you to cook once in a while and store them in the fridge, but you decide to be cooking every day, that is going to affect the energy you are using to cook, being it gas or electricity. It will increase it. But as at now, we are still going to leave that. For children care, here we will also leave it as 150. For our data, we can still leave our data at £20. But however, there are questions you can still ask concerning your data. This data you are purchasing, what are you using it to do? How often do you use it? The £20 we are putting here is for unlimited data. If you don't need unlimited data, you can reduce this from £20 to like £10. Then we have black tax. We have explained what black tax means. Then our miscellaneous. Our miscellaneous simply means some of your needs that doesn't announce themselves before they arrive. I don't mean maybe something like sickness or accident. I don't mean that. There is emergency fund, is what they call emergency fund. You can subscribe to emergency fund in terms of sickness, in terms of accident, in terms of some things that you don't plan for. You know, you can subscribe to emergency fund. It's also a savings plan whereby when those things happen, that money will take care of it. But this miscellaneous, what this means is that there are some of your needs that do appear unannounced. For instance, your electricity bulb, the thing can be faulty, you need to change it. Apart from that, there are other things, let's say the handle of your door, you want to open your door, the handle just break, and you are not the owner of the house, you need to replace it. Those are the thing that you make provision for in this your miscellaneous. That is the last on that list. And if nothing happen that month, this your £30, the next month you take it to this other side, or you take it to your emergency fund, save it there. That is all we can go today for this our £620. This is now our new savings amount that we have determined. This is the amount you are going to be saving or you are going to be investing. This is the amount you are going to be saving, the amount you are going to be investing. Every month as you receive your £2,000, you first of all pay yourself according to that savings formula. You pay yourself £620. Once you pay yourself £620, this other side they will take care of themselves with the remaining balance. You have already paid yourself. That is how to save. That is how to save for investment so that you can begin to build your own wealth. If you want me to make a video on how you can be saving that £620, you can put it on the comment section. It is one thing to determine this amount, which is £620, to be our savings. It is another thing to actually save this money, because money is easy to spend than to save. You need to be disciplined enough to actually save this £620. It is not just enough to determine this amount, but it will be very good that you save this amount. Maybe you are asking, what are the savings products you will distribute this your savings amount to, or what are the type of investment that you want to invest this amount in. If you want me to teach on that, you can put it on the comment section. I will do a video on that too. Having said that, if there is anything we are missing in this video that you think we are missing, the analysis, there are other ways, the type of savings formula that you know that we too can as well learn from, you can put it on the comment section. If there is any loopholes in the teaching, we are welcome for criticism, because we can as well learn from there. Thank you. I hope you have subscribed to this video. Please subscribe so that whenever I drop a video of this kind, you will be among the first people to see it. And also like, comment and share to others. Even if your salary is very robust, I believe you must have gained from this teaching. Please help us to share it to people that you know that their salary is small. Thank you very much. See you in my next video. Bye.